The third and final race is about to get underway here for the BRSCC Mazda Super Series. Brian Chandler yet again is starting on pole position, but he's got a bit of competition this time. Alex Miller managed to get ahead of him in the last round. Is he going to be able to do it again in this one? We'll have to wait and see. So Andy, going to hand it over to you to run us through all of the action.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, that second race has set us up nicely for what should be an enthralling final encounter of the weekend. Chandler and Miller row one, Pickford and Marshall Burks on the second row, looking for another podium if possible. Clyde Powell's, Darren Kell, Cameron Thompson and Declan Lee are next in line, then Liz Walton, Simon Fleet and James Kell at the back. There will be no Jeremy Crook, unfortunately. The accident damage from yesterday's first race has put him out for the rest of the weekend, which is a real shame because he was starting to show some good form in the early part of the 2019 season. So for the final time then at sunny Pembrey, the red lights are out, we're away and racing. Simon Fleet in the blue car will be looking to make progress from the back of the grid further towards the sharp end though. Matt Pickford started third but already has Joseph Marshall Burks alongside him on the outside line down towards turn number one. It's going to be Chandler and Miller though, the top two from this morning's second race of the weekend, that lead them through Hatchett's hairpin for the first time of asking. Marshall Burks with two wheels on the grass trying to bully his way back in line around the outside line. That's not going to work though. Matt Pickford having none of it, holds on to third place then with Marshall Burks fourth, and then Powells and Thompson fifth and sixth. Cameron Thompson there, who got a seventh place finish in the previous race and a sixth in the first one, so it's been a really consistent weekend for him so far. Oh, Chandler and Miller both locking up and both going off. Brian Chandler, the race leader on the grass though, surely going to lose the race lead. Yes, he does, and Pickford goes through as well. So Brian Chandler and Alex Miller, both of them locking up, but Chandler in particular outbraking himself and running way off the road, has just thrown away the race lead, and he will be kicking himself for that one. So Miller leads the way, and now Matt Pickford is into second position. Down the back straight they go. Pickford, who has never won a race in MX-5s in the past, is looking now down the barrel of a potential race lead if he can find a way past Alex Miller. Chandler's third, Marshall Burks fourth, and Simon Fleet from 10th is into fifth already. Magnificent progress on the opening lap for him. Chandler's off again, look out of the final corner. In fairness, he's not the only one, they're all pushing on now, and most of them on tyres that have done two 20-minute races already and are probably a little worse for wear. Pickford locking up as he tries to go around the outside of Miller. Look at this battle for the race lead though, and Chandler's up the inside for second. He's going to try and take full advantage of that mistake for Pickford and does so. Clobbers the curbs in doing it, but he goes through to second place, Pickford down to third, and now it is a resumption of the battle that we saw for the majority of this morning's race with Miller and Chandler, but the opposite way around. Miller is in front now and will not want to hand this lead away, but Chandler is back up the inside of the chicane and in fact has already gone through. He's a bit late on the brakes, but it doesn't matter because the next 3 or 4 corners, in fact 5 or 6 corners really, are right-handers. There are only 2 left-handers on the entire circuit and they've just gone through them. And it was the second of those left-handers where Miller made the mistake, unfortunately. So Chandler, in the space of a lap, has already got himself back from third to first. But if this morning's race is anything to go by, Miller might just be able to stay with him, and Pickford's had some decent pace as well. So I don't think this is over just yet. Through the quick right-handers, they go down the back straight. To the second of those right-handers, and Chandler's way wide again. What's going on with Brian Chandler here? Alex Miller back up the inside line, will need no second invitation, and he'll probably have the lead away, I reckon, by the time they reach Hatchet. Chandler will try and fight back if he can, but he can't, not round the outside anyway, and he locks up and nearly runs into the back of Miller. This is really dramatic stuff. Simon Fleet joining in as well, now goes up the inside of Joseph Marshall Burks. That's for fourth place. That's going on in the background. Look, the blue car on the inside line, will he go through? They're still side by side, and I think Marshall Burks with the inside line for Debenny should be able to go through, or hold on I should say, to fourth position. What a topsy-turvy race this is turning into. They're a proper MX-5 race now. They've all got a bit more used to the circuit, they know where they're going, they know what they're doing, and what they're doing now is providing some real entertainment. Brian Chandler straight away back up the inside of Miller. He knows that Miller's got good pace this weekend, so he can't afford to let Alex have a few laps out in front, because then he might just check out and pull away. So Brian Chandler for the second time snaps straight back and gets the lead back, but Pickford unfortunately is off. Matt Pickford in real strife, and I don't know whether that's contact or mechanical failure, but either way he is out of the race, and that is not the way that he wanted his final race of the weekend to end, because he was right in the hunt for a potential race victory. Right, deep breath everyone, this is only about lap 3 and Brian Chandler and Alex Miller have already exchanged the race lead 2 or 3 times, and I don't think that'll be the last time either, because Alex Miller is well and truly up for the fight here. Simon Fleet is into 3rd place. Look, he's at the head of the next queue of cars, with Joseph Marshall Burks trying to get up the inside of him though. 2 wheels on the grass for Marshall Burks. Is he late enough on the brakes? He's got the inside line for Hatchets and he'll go back through. So Marshall Burks into 3rd and Clive Powles. Oh, contact between Clive Powles and Simon Fleet, and that sends Cameron Thompson straight into the back of him. Simon Fleet gesticulates at a driver that is no longer there because they both spun behind him. Cameron Thompson's rejoined, but Clive Powles has not, and what a shame that had to end in contact. Cameron Thompson's car appears to be okay, I reckon, but I'm not so sure about Clive Powles' car. Simon Fleet has continued, but he's back down to 4th now because Marshall Burks took advantage of that to go back into 3rd. Matt Pickford's in the pits anyway. There's hardly anyone left in this race before too much longer. Now, I think I just caught a glimpse there of James Kell. James started the weekend in a green car, which he damaged. So then he changed to a red car, which he damaged. So now he's in a red and green car. I think that is the red car from this morning with a front bumper from his original car that's been added on to replace the damaged one from earlier on. Simon Fleet has damage in this race as well. There's Cameron Thompson recovering after not his first bit of contact this weekend either. Simon Fleet, in fact, pits. So rear suspension damage for Fleet's car. That's a real shame because he was starting to look menacing and looking on for a podium position maybe. But the man now to watch, I think, is going to be that green and red number 68 car of James Kell. It's the spare car that he's in, but it's clearly quick. They'll have probably made some setup changes after the first race today, the second race of the weekend. Oh, dear, more contact. That's Thompson into Declan Lee. Oh, and Declan's got suspension damage as well now. I was about to mention that Declan Lee actually got his first finish of the season in the previous race. He didn't finish any of the races at Brands Hatch, and he didn't finish the first race here either, but he did manage to get to the end of the previous race inside the top 10 in 8th place, but with damaged suspension after contact with Cameron Thompson, it's unlikely that he's going to get any further in this one. And with Cameron now involved in his second bit of contact already in this race, but not even halfway through, I think he might be having a conversation with the clerk of the course afterwards, and there may well be some punishment coming his way. It's been entertaining to watch, but not necessarily for the right reasons for Cameron. The frustrating thing for the other drivers is that Cameron's car appears to be okay despite the contact he's been dishing out. Unfortunately for Declan Lee, the white car is still limping around in the background, but I fear is on its way to the pit lane. Darren Kell taking advantage of that. He picks up a couple of positions, and Darren, in contrast, has finished every race so far this season, and in fact has had 3 top 10 finishes as well. Thompson now on the grass, which will be doing nothing to appease the situation because he's now exceeding track limits as well. Right, there is James Kell. He is in 4th position now. He's on the tail of Joseph Marshall Burks. James, remarkably, has only finished 1 race this season as well, and that was the first race at Brands Hatch, which he won. Then he didn't finish race 2 because he went off at Paddock Hill Bend, didn't start race 3 as a result of that damage, and they didn't have the spare car with them then. Perhaps in preparation and in anticipation that a similar situation might arise this weekend, they brought the spare with them, and it's been well used because his original car was damaged in race 1 yesterday, which he didn't finish, and then he damaged the spare car in race 2, which he didn't finish. So really, James just needs to try and get to the end of this race. I'm not at all suggesting that all of those non-finishes are his fault, by the way. I think he'll probably hold his hand up to say the Brands Hatch one was, but we don't know what happened to him in the second race this weekend, and we know full well that the accident that damaged his original car beyond repair was not his fault. That was a result of Jeremy Crook torpedoing him and Simon Fleet at the start of the race. So certainly he is fairly blameless for a lot of the damage that's come his way. It's just been a really unlucky start to the season for Darren Kell, but he's here about to move back into 3rd place. He's on the inside of Joseph Marshall Burks and will go through. I think Marshall Burks leaves him plenty of room, and yep, the red and a bit of green now on that car goes through into a podium position, but he's some way down the road now from the top 2. He'll need some good fortune, I think, to be able to catch Alex Miller and Brian Chandler in front of him. So James Kell then, who's a busy boy this season. He's racing in Super Series, he's also racing in the MX-5 Super Cup when he gets the chance, and he's racing in the Ginetta GT4 Super Cup that supports the British Touring Car Championship. Oh, that's Alex Miller! Alex Miller from 2nd place now. They're dropping like flies here at Pembrey, and the Bora Motorsport car, unfortunately, grinding to a halt. Now that almost certainly was a mechanical issue because I don't think he was close enough to Brian Chandler to have had contact with him, but that's a real shame. Alex Miller having by far his standout weekend. He had that third place finish in race 1, a second in race 2, having led on a couple of occasions, and unfortunately in race 3 it all goes wrong. So Miller out of the race, and that promotes James Kell into second place, which is coincidentally his he's had a podium place, in fact, in Ginettas. In fact, I was going to say it was a second place. It wasn't. It was a third place finish in Ginettas at Brands Hatch. But that was a class victory in the AM class, and to be on the outright podium in that very competitive Ginetta GT4 Super Cup in the AM class is remarkable. I think the weather had something to do with it, but James Kell has been a real star of the Ginetta GT4 Super Cup this year. It's great to see him moving up the racing ladder. We documented this last year, how his pace suddenly seemed to improve mid-season, and he went from being a sort of consistent midfield runner to regularly at the sharp end, not just in Super Series, but also in the final couple of Super Cup rounds. And here he is now in second place, getting away from Joseph Marshall-Burks. Has he got the pace, though, to go after Brian Chandler? At the moment, it's looking like a tall order, because Brian's about 6 or 7 seconds up the road from these two. But we'll wait and see what James Kell's got. Brian has, in fact, just set his fastest lap of the race last time round, a 1 minute 13.847, which is considerably slower than his fastest laps from the previous two races. Brian set the fastest lap in both of those two races. His first race, it was a 13.5, then it was a 13.6, and now a 13.8 that he's done in this race. So the tyres clearly feeling the heat now after a punishing 3 races, well, 2.5 races, I guess. They're into the second half now, this third and final race of the weekend. So it's maybe to be expected that Brian, as indeed is the case for everyone out there, they're not able to quite run the pace they were at the start of the weekend. Pole position, incidentally, in the qualifying session yesterday was a 1 minute 12.7. So they were going about half a second, or actually no, about 6 or 7 tenths quicker even then than they were in the first race. So the drivers, I'd imagine, will all be using tyres, the same set of tyres for the entire weekend, so as to keep costs down. And it makes perfect sense, because they do still last. It's just that you can see the benefit that you do have from fresher tyres. You know, if you can afford to throw fresh tyres at it every race, then great, you'll have really good pace. But that's the expensive way of doing it. At this level, particularly in the Super Series, I think most of the drivers just trying to use the same set of tyres over the course of the weekend, but that is a drop-off of about a second from qualifying yesterday to racing now. So interesting to watch the pace as it develops and maybe drops away over the weekend. But Brian Chandler is now looking fairly comfortable in the lead. James Kell is lapping as quick as him, but not significantly quicker, that he's likely to close down what is now about an 8-second advantage for Brian Chandler. There's Darren Kell, look, he's in 4th position now as a result of all the other argy-bargy. And this is Liz Walton. Liz Walton, her best ever, or her best finish of the season so far, was 8th place yesterday. Well, Liz, who's just ahead of the number 15 car on screen now, Clyde Powell's, is in 5th position. She has never had a top 5 finish before, and if she can fend off Clyde Powell's for the remaining 6 or 7 minutes of this race, she will get her first ever top 5, and that would be a real achievement. I know she's benefited from the fact we've got quite a few non-finishers in this race, but nonetheless, it's been a really, really solid weekend for Liz. She had that 8th place in race 1, she had a 9th in race 2, and now, with other people falling off the road in front of her, she's been able to pick her way into the top 5, and actually in the first part of this lap appears to be pulling away from the vastly more experienced Clyde Powell's. Clyde may not have had that many appearances in Mark III cars, but he's a former front runner in the Mark I Championship, and championship contender, in fact, a couple of years ago. So Clive, like many drivers, I think, finding the step from the Mark 1s to the Mark 3s is trickier than anticipated. These cars are a lot less forgiving than the Mark 1 cars. Everything happens a bit more slowly in Mark 1s. They have less power, so they're obviously slower anyway, but you can sort of slide them around. It's more of a gradual sort of movement when you're sliding the car from corner to corner, whereas these cars, you can see they don't really respond well to that sideways sort of driving style. We saw that a bit from Alex Miller in the previous race when he was trying to get past Brian Chandler, and heavy application of the throttle pedal will result in the car snapping sideways and you losing time, whereas in the Mark 1s you can sort of be a bit more heavy-handed with them. So Clyde Powell's finding that it's not easy just to jump straight into one of these cars and be quick. He's had a couple of top 5 finishes so far this weekend, including earlier on today, where he's had, in fact, a pair of top 5, pair of 5th place finishes this weekend, 5th yesterday and 5th in the second race earlier on. But on this occasion, running in 6th behind Liz Walton, the car possibly not all that healthy after the contact that he had earlier on with Cameron Thompson and Simon Fleet. He was sort of right in the middle of all of that, but he is, I think, now the last of the runners. In fact, we may only have 6 cars circulating. Cameron Thompson, I'm not sure if Cameron's still out there, but we know he's under investigation for contact that included Clive Howes and Simon Fleet, so if he gets a penalty, it's sort of take him out of the equation anyway. So this is the fight not to be last in the race, and Lyndsay at the moment is winning it. She's in 5th position, she's running decent pace as well. She set her personal best lap not that long ago as well, so she's actually one of the few drivers who are improving their pace as the race goes on. Her fastest lap so far this weekend in racing was 1:17.9 in the the first race, and she's on that sort of pace again now. Brian Chandler's fastest lap in this race is a 1:13.8, as we said earlier on. That is more than enough, it looks, to wrap up this hat-trick of victories. Something he's making rather a habit of, actually, in the Welsh rounds of the MX-5 Super Series. We documented earlier on that he won all 3 races at Anglesey last year, and now, a little further south and in slightly warmer weather, significantly warmer weather in fact, he is looking equally as dominant. Runs right out to the edge of the road, but not an inch further. That was perfection there coming out of the final turn, and look at that gap. When was the last time you saw an MX-5 race, be it Mark 1s or Mark 3s, with that sort of an advantage for the race leader? But because of all the harry-carry that was going on behind, he's been able to pull right away from everybody really, and whilst James Kell has got into 2nd place, he's not really been able to go after the leader. The gap was just too big, the starting point was too big, about 6 or 7 seconds, and really James just wants a finish, so not really worth him throwing everything at this and maybe throwing the car off the road. He just needs to get to the end, get some more seat time, and that will benefit him in the long run, both in his Mazda racing and Ginetta racing as well. It's Jason Marshall-Burke still in 3rd position, but he's dropped some way back as well now. Really, the fighting at the front of the field all ended after the first 3 or 4 laps because all of the main players found themselves stricken at the side of the road. Simon Fleet with damage, Matt Pickford had mechanical gremlins, so too did Alex Miller. That took 3 of our potential podium finishers out of the race before it really got going, and it left these 3 clear to run away with it out in front. See the motocross track there, the Supermoto track in the background. Pembrey these days catering for all forms of motorsport. It's a very popular rallycross venue, the rallycross circuit, which branches off from the main track down at the S's, about halfway around the lap. Also hosts a big truck racing meeting every season. Used to, back in the days, hold rounds of the British Touring Car Championship back in the early 90s, but that sort of ended as the BTCC started to grow and grow. It's still a very popular clubman circuit, is Pembrey, and gets some decent crowds for some of the bigger meetings over the year. A few spectators here today as well, enjoying the spring sunshine, and they've enjoyed plenty of entertainment from their 3 MX-5 Super Series races, the Mark 1 Championship here in support as well this weekend, so it's a bit of an MX-5 festival in South Wales. They always produce good racing regardless where they go, and with the tight confines but high speeds of this Pembrey circuit, they've provided cracking Super Series races already this weekend. Here's the fight for 5th, between Liz Walton and Clive Powles. Clive sort of inching back onto her tail now, and Liz feeling the need to defend a bit into the Hatchet's hairpin. But I don't really think Clive is close enough to attack, so possibly unnecessary defence there, but she's just making absolutely certain that he doesn't throw an attack up the inside line. See the slightly older model of MX-5 there for Liz Walton with the more oval-shaped grille on the front of the car, and you'll see from this shot the slightly bigger, almost smiley-faced grille of Clive Powell's car behind, which is slightly newer. It makes absolutely no difference to performance. The cars are very strictly regulated. It was just a facelift given to the cars anyway, the road-going versions from which these cars come. All of these cars start as road-going cars, and then donor cars, and then they are turned into full-blown racers. But it wouldn't actually take that much work to make the road legal again. Most of the most affordable forms of motorsport tend to be from road-based machinery, because you just buy yourself a sort of cheap second-hand road car, convert it into a race car, and there you go. And you can send it out onto the circuit and have an awful lot of fun. MX-5 racing continuing to be hugely popular here in the UK. and indeed around the world, of course, the Global MX-5 Cup over in America, enjoying big grids with the new Mark IV car, which we may well see make an appearance in the UK in the future. On to the final lap, though, is going Brian Chandler, who we will definitely see back on the top step of the podium in the future in some form of MX-5 racing, I'm sure. The car receiving a shakedown this weekend, really, more than anything else, but it's clearly been a positive shakedown because despite the rather more intense battling that he had to survive in race 2, maybe than he was expecting, the first and third races of the weekend have been dominant victories. He won the first one by 5.2 seconds. He looks set to win this one by nearly 10 seconds. So, okay, as I said, he was helped by other people running into each other, running into trouble further back, but he still had to keep the car on the island, still had to keep the pace up, which he's done. And this glorified test session for Brian Chandler has, I'm sure, left him feeling fairly positive about his prospects for the rest of the season. Hopefully we'll see him out in the MX-5 Super Cup. He's not out in the opening rounds this weekend because they're taking place as we speak over at Snetterton. He is hopefully going to make an appearance later on this season. And with a car that clearly is working well, he should be a podium and race victory contender. Certainly a victory contender here at Pembrey because he's going to do the hat-trick again. It's 3 from 3, it's 6 from 6 appearances in the MX-5 Super Cup, and having never been beaten, the winning run continues for Brian Chandler, and he takes the victory in the final race here in Wales. James Kell salvages something from what's still been a disappointing weekend with a second place finish in only his second race finish of the season. Third place will go the way of Joseph Marshall-Burke, some 14.4 seconds off the lead. Darren Kelly's fourth, that's his best finish, with Cameron Thompson, Liz Walton sixth in the end, and Clyde Powell's seventh, but we believe Thompson has been given a post-race disqualification for contact earlier on, so Liz Walton will inherit her first ever top 5.
3 out of 3, Bri.
3 out of 3, yeah, brand new car. The boys back at the workshop done good, didn't they? So, yeah, didn't touch it all weekend, really, so good car.
James, from last position to second, how on earth did you manage that?
Just waited for everyone else to take themselves out and then drove through. Pretty much, just sat around and just had a nice little drive.
You look like you had fire in your belly during that round, though.
Yeah, well, I was a bit sick after the first 2 rounds just because getting taken out and yeah, the issues you have with the car, but just waited and just drove around and then just picked off people when I could and slotted into second and was surprised when I saw Brian in front of me, so yeah, just kept going.
Joe, you seemed like you were fighting for everything out there. Talk us through the race.
Well, I had a good start. I think I got into third or maybe fourth, and then next minute I'm into second. I was like, oh, this is brilliant, this is. And then James was up behind, but nothing could do, just too quick at the time. It's a good race though.
Well, it's been a fantastic trio of races here from Pembrey with lots of action throughout, and the action really started right from the word go with this big shunt taking Jeremy Crook out for the remainder of the weekend. Thankfully though, contact was not necessarily the order of the day. There was some fantastic racing all weekend long and 3 race victories from 3 for Brian Chandler. Well, join us next time at Cadwell Park to see who comes out on top there.